All right. Let's call the meeting to order, the May meeting of the Black Mountain Town Council, and let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is Richard White here?
I haven't seen it.
Okay, well, I tell you what, just remain standing for the invocation. Lord, we give thanks for the day. We give thanks for the opportunity to serve. We give thanks for the employees of the town of Black Mountain and our citizens. We pray your good watch and good care over all, and lead and guide us in our meeting this evening. We ask our prayers in Christ's name. Amen. All right. Do we have, I do have a couple of proclamations. Well, maybe I just have one proclamation. Is this for everybody here? I guess it is. Just the one. Do we have our?
Yes, we have Barrett.
Is Barrett's behind the
yes.
behind the mask there?
Bill could not be here.
Bill couldn't be here. Okay, very good. Well, I have a proclamation to read. Barrett, welcome. Thank you for being here. This is Pro Bono Celebration Day, whether you knew it or not. Whereas the Buncombe County Bar's annual Pro Bono celebration highlights the amazing free legal work performed by hundreds of lawyers, paralegals, and volunteers across the county, and whereas the Bar's Pro Bono Committee works to honor the tremendous impact lawyers make in our community, recruit and train new pro bono volunteers, and create partnerships that form the basis of the private bar's most successful pro bono efforts. And whereas every year dozens of citizens within the town of Black Mountain benefit from the free legal work provided by members of the Buncombe County Bar, and whereas over the last year, over 300 volunteer attorneys provided over 3,343 hours of free legal work, estimated to be worth over $835,750. And whereas the following attorneys and pro bono projects have been recognized this year by the Buncombe County Bar for their exceptional pro bono work. Barrett McFadder, Young Lawyer, Pro Bono Award. Congratulations, Barrett, for all your service and labor. Julia Northup and Van Vogel, Emeritus Lawyer, Pro Bono Award. Unemployment Insurance Benefit Project, Collaborative Legal Project, and Pro Bono Award, Jean Lee, Outstanding Lawyer of the Year, Pro Bono Award, and William Christie, Lifetime Achievement Pro Bono Award. And our congratulations to Bill. We all know him, and we appreciate his service to the community. Whereas the citizens of the town of Black Mountain are better off when justice is not limited to only those who can pay for an attorney. Now, therefore, I, Larry B. Harris, Mayor of the town of Black Mountain, do hereby proclaim May 12, 2021 as Pro Bono Celebration Day in Black Mountain, and call upon all Black Mountain residents to recognize and appreciate the dedication and contributions of these legal professionals who enhance the lives of our citizens by providing free legal work to those in need throughout our community. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the town of Black Mountain, North Carolina, to be affixed this 10th day of May, 2021. Is this for Barrett?
Yes.
Come on up, Barrett. We don't want you to go away empty-handed. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thanks as well.
Well, thank you. You want to turn around so the people in town can see you. Thank you, Barrett, for coming.
Thank you.
All right. We do not, do we have any citizen comments at this point in time?
I'll save them for later.
Okay. And so we have no communications from staff, councils, commissions, and agencies this evening. And so we are on with our consent agenda, Mr. Town Manager.
All right, I will start with 5A, which is your adoption of minutes. This is to adopt the minutes of April 8th, 2021 agenda workshop and the April 12th, 2021 regular session meeting. I'm gonna let our finance officer, finance director, Miss Tammy Holland, go through B through G.
Gives me all the hard work. So the first amendment, your 5B, is to recognize donations received throughout the year for the fire department. 5C is to recognize a grant from Duke Energy for the watershed restoration project. 5D is to recognize insurance proceeds for damaged police vehicles and bulletproof vest reimbursement from the state. 5E is to create a capital project fund for the Tomahawk Dam repair project. This will not be complete this year, so we're setting up a multi-year fund for that. 5F is to create a special revenue fund to track the restricted fire department funds received throughout the year to make sure those are only spent on fire department expenses. 5G is the PAL bill, setting up a special revenue fund to track revenue and expense items for the state. Proceeds sent for the PAL bill, this is required by state statute.
Thank you, Tammy.
Yep.
5H will be a call for public hearing for text amendments to comply with Chapter 160D. This is something the General Assembly, this has been passed, I think, last year, and everyone has to comply by July 1st of this year. This is modernizing the statutes, essentially. 5I will be a call for public hearing for our comprehensive plan known as Elevate Black Mountain. 5J is a call for public hearing to close a portion of unopened platted portion of right-of-way parallel in between West College Street and Goldmont Street and Central Avenue. 5K will be a call for public hearing to create a stormwater utility ordinance. And let's see, 5L, call for public hearing to create a stormwater utility fund. 5M is a resolution to provide matching funds for the 9th Street Bridge Replacement Project. And 5N is an approval of our audit contract for the next fiscal year. And that'll be it for your consent agenda.
Thank you, Josh. Any members of the council have any questions for Tammy or for Josh? And if not, I'd entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. You can start the roll call.
Ryan Stone, aye.
Archie Patroller, aye.
Tim Raines, aye.
Doug Hay, aye.
Pam King, aye.
All right, it has passed unanimously. Do we have any citizen comments at this point?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll go ahead and read one now. This is from Charlotte McGraney. I applaud staff for the draft of the new procedures for reviewing applications for boards and commissions and making recommendations of applicants to the town council. I did note, however, that the section of the policy did not specify how the actual nomination and election of those applicants would be handled by the town council. Will the nomination and ballot process specified for town council vacancies also be used for boards and commission vacancies? ? Since staff noted that this is the preferred methodology, it seems appropriate that the policies and procedures should be clarified to indicate that this methodology will apply to all boards, commissions, and council vacancies. That's it for now.
All right, thank you. So our first, we're on to our unfinished business, which is the Riverwalk Greenway update.
So we talked a little bit about this last Thursday night. We have our engineer of record here, Mr. Fred Grogan with Michael Baker Engineering, MBI, and I'm gonna let him, do you have something to show?
Well, we did. Jessica had something.
Okay.
She had to leave.
All right.
So,
So let me just kind of roll into this. I think how we left it Thursday, we're talking about splitting the project. That is happening. They've been sent those figures, so we should be good on the costs. Because we
Tristan was good with that. He thought that would work.
We did get those to Tristan, so that should be taken care of. Now, moving forward, I did mention Thursday that we've kind of hit a sticking point that we've been setting in now for a number of months, and that would be with the railroad crossing from the alternate route that was proposed that goes on Hemp Hill Road. We have not had any success in hearing back from the railroad at this point. We have also reached out to the property owner that we would need to get easements from, just up adjacent to the Hemp Hill property, and we have also been unsuccessful in reaching well, unsuccessful in hearing back from that property owner. And I know Attorney Sneed was gonna send a letter, and I think he did, and probably haven't heard.
back.
So at this point, I guess we're still in a holding pattern, but those two issues for that route are, for me, are just a little concerning at this time, that we're not getting any kind of energy on any of that right now. So just wanted to give you an update. I don't have a whole lot more for you, but that's kind of where we stand on. Those are the two that we need to figure out before we can move forward with a route through there. So anything you want to add, Fred?
No, I'm here. If there are any questions, I apologize again. It was the same graphic that we looked at last time through town with all the option numbers on them. And I was just going to answer any questions anybody might have on any of those. I mean, I see it as having, two routes right now. One goes through town and one goes Hempel route. Unless there's, we've again done a lot of modeling, a lot of iterations on the route through the corridor itself, the river, Twananoa and Black Creek to Noah Bay also. Those are looking very unlikely. So I think we're left with those two options. Really.
So at this point, for mayor and council, I'm going to lean on you for direction. I guess the question is, how long do we want to wait on the railroad and the property owner to give us any kind of answers before we start?
Well, I would like to, I have a question for Fred, just to, if you could share with council, your concerns, what you think maybe some of the high hurdles are, and the public too, by the
Yes,
way,
of course.
with the proposed route going through the Hemphill property.
Sure, no problem. So we have, I'll try to make this as simple as possible. Obviously, as Josh suggested, it is a privately owned property on the other side who may be holding that railroad easement. Our concern is obviously if that easement becomes truncated for any reason in order to transfer to town, that it may go away. Norfolk Southern does have that authorization. And then there is I think ultimately our concern is for the long-term access to the Hempel property. It's not just the Riverwalk Greenway. I think improvements have to be made at both the stream crossing there
Right.
of Swananoa and the railroad.
Do you need a new bridge?
Well, currently it's culverts, but in order to widen that to accommodate ingress and egress, then you may be better off. The most economical route is probably a cord slab short bridge section that just opens that whole opening up, and you don't have to worry about it. You can widen it, but it will need something. It will either need an extension of those culverts or a span.
Well, is your estimation of the cost, is it affordable to go through the Hemphill property? Can we do it with the funds that we had to go the other route?
We could, one of the other things I should mention too is getting across 70 in the first place to get over there.
Right.
So I think that's a long-term solution, and I don't see any reason why long-term it may not become feasible. But I think the question is now, is it within our time frame that we want to work with
Right.
to get this project moving?
Right.
Because I think that's going to require a lot more patience and just working with Norfolk Southern, working with DOT, trying to decide if we can get across that. So, but other than that, if we take out the improvements to Norfolk Southern, which is just an unknown, we don't know if they would require a overpass over the rail line, which would be exorbitant and
Right.
probably beyond the scope of
Right.
anything that anybody's wanting to do right now. But there's some if scenarios. If the crossing could be improved and accommodate Greenway uses through this project, and if the culvert could be widened, then it would fall within the budget of the overall project.
Yeah, those are the unknowns. Where does it go if you're, to move over toward number 9,
Mhm.
kind of walk through it's just about as good for you to walk through it verbally as to show
Sure.
me a map, just
Sure, I
about,
could.
but how does it tie in? What does it go across
So-
to get the?
If you're
Nine.
you're talking about the Hempel property still.
Right, you go,
Okay.
we enter through the Hemphill property.
Yes.
How do I get, go over and get
Understood.
eventually under number 9 and meet up with the Carlos Showers?
That's actually quite straightforward. if we're on the Hempel property, there were two route options on that property. One was more constrained than the other, but the other was farther away. But there was a proposed bridge number 2 in the Riverwalk project that's behind Bilo.
Mm-hmm.
That passed hydraulically, and that should be fine. So
Uh-huh.
basically you connect in at that bridge,
Oh, okay.
then you go behind Bilo, around to 9.
And the Hemp Hill property goes, you could make it to that bridge?
You could, if you got through the stream crossing in Norfolk Southern,
Right.
And we get an easement from the property owner.
and obviously obtain an easement.
Because that's all gonna be, once you get off Hemp Hill, you're gonna have to cross.
Well, that's my question.
Yeah.
How much private property is there between Hemp Hill and
Quite
the
a
bridge?
bit.
The bridge?
It's significant.
That's
It's
what I
the
thought,
entire
yeah.
parcel. Essentially, we'll have to kind of circumnavigate that
And
parcel.
we don't know at this point in time if we have cooperation to get
Well, at
easement?
this point in time, I would say we don't have any cooperation because they haven't responded at all.
We're not getting responses, which at this point is a bad
Is that
sign.
property owned by Mr. Fontaine?
It's
Is the whole piece of,
It's a
whole big piece of
It's
property?
it's a partnership, him and someone else.
Uh-huh.
But
I believe I know who it is.
individual LLC.
Yeah. But they're just not responding at all. But
And-
anyway, they're the ones that own that have the, it's not ownership, what do you call it with the railroad and the crossing?
There is some sort, we don't know.
The lease,
because
they have the lease on that crossing.
Or something to that effect, which the railroad hasn't shared that agreement with
Right.
us, so we don't know exactly what that, it does give them.
Right, so we don't know for sure, but they've got that tied up
So
somehow.
the railroad says they made a deal with them, and we
Right.
don't know the nature of that deal.
Right.
Mhm.
Great, anybody have any other questions for Fred?
Yep, absolutely.
So walk us through again what it would look like if we did come through town, what the alternate route.
Yes. Currently, there's Scotland Avenue, which is right across from Black Mountain Primary. That is a small, neighborhood road, relatively low volume. So that would have to be, we have some options. One is we go that route with bikes only, and as it ties into Center Avenue and then Ridgeway. Ridgeway is a fairly high cut-through road, fairly decent traffic, and there's a kind of a blind hill there that's going to be hard to navigate within the right-of-way, so it may have to have improvements there. But that would be more or less the bike route option, and then the pedestrian option would be following along 70 until it turns into Ridgeland, which there is an existing sidewalk by the post office, down by Henson's and across there. So it would be a mixed, typology, if you will. One would be a bike route, more or less, that would have sharrows on the road and signage, and then the other would be pedestrian through town. There are other options. There's a plethora of options, if you will, but Scotland, if you had the right of way and you could widen it out, there are utility conflicts there and things, but if you could widen it out, you could make the whole thing a off side path, essentially. But I think logistically and economically, you probably want to look at the most direct route, to get people through safely.
So you would go from behind the primary school where
Correct.
come out, and where do you go from there
To get to the
Mhm.
primary school hasn't been the connection hasn't been made.
Okay,
But from the primary school at 70 at the crossing there, that's where the project really has started on 70.
Yeah. Right.
And there's opportunities to get around the primary school with the existing fence and field that could be possibly relocated, but I think that's a relatively straightforward operation, but of course it would take coordination with Buncombe County Schools,
mm-hmm.
Things like that, but the land is there and it's relatively straightforward.
Okay.
I think we've always thought that you get this big piece done, then you can tie it in with that. Now, there's also options along Village Way that go by Flat Creek Road and then back down 70, which isn't great. It kind of goes up and around. But that primary function is to connect the primary and the elementary schools. So that's kind of serving its purpose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
With the bike route
Mhm.
that you're talking about,
Mhm.
is there room or opportunity to expand in order to have a separated bike section and not just share roads?
So the data that we're working from right now is public tax parcel data. So it shows, a gap in the property boundaries, but that's not survey accuracy. So we don't know where the actual right-of-way starts and ends. Until we know how wide that right-of-way is that we can work within, then we don't know how much we can go either side. So it could be maintained as two-way, and I hate to be flippant about that, but it could support a sidewalk, but we don't know how far we can get outside of the existing edge of pavement currently. But that's an option. But I think if you do that, you have to understand that once you get off Scotland and Center, then the roadway becomes a little more high traffic. So you need to continue that improvement down Ridgeway until it connects around to your Henson's or that area.
And there's nothing there, right? There's no sidewalk or anything at that point. So
Nope.
pedestrian and bike would then be sharing the road. So,
Well, again, the pedestrians in this scenario would go straight down 70 to Richland by the post office on the existing sidewalk. Now, those sidewalks would also need to be improved for ADA compliance and things like that if it's part of this project. And I think because if I may, because these options, the Hempel option hasn't been settled, we don't know which option we're going to go with there, that there just hasn't been any progression on that right now. We have a lot of information and a lot of things that we need to know. We do know there's some utilities along 70 right out here that would have to be negotiated and relocated. The right-of-way is relatively narrow, and the sidewalks and ramps would need to be improved to meet compliance.
I guess speaking for myself, if you're looking for guidance on whether to continue, which route to kind of look forward or look toward, it's hard for me to get excited about, upgrading existing sidewalks and putting arrows on the road, when that's essentially what we have already. But if there was an opportunity to expand the road and add a designated bike path and, something that's actually separated in some capacity, even if it's just in little barriers, that would be more exciting for me personally. But I'm only speaking for myself.
Well, and the thing about that is we really can't, we could, I don't know that it would be a good use of funds, but you could start going in and examining these options, but we're gonna be spending money, right? We gotta do surveys to get right-of-way numbers, and I think until the council and mayor are fine with not doing Hemp Hill, or until we get feedback from the property owner of the railroad, I don't know what else we can do at this point besides start on the other leg.
Well, and I think that was the important thing, is that's the reason, because we don't have those answers on that northern section. That's why it was important to at least move forward with something as part of this project. And the MPO and
Right.
DOT have been willing to let us break it out like that. So
How long have we been waiting for feedback from the railroad?
I would guess at least 2 months.
I would say a little over, but yeah. Now, I'll caveat that by saying we're always waiting on the road. We have been working with them through the whole project, and each time we bring something, there's just a lag there.
Yeah, I know that it's difficult and they usually
It is.
don't, so.
Correct.
That's why I was wondering how long.
I think it's good that Jessica and Josh are speaking with the DOT's rail unit, and they're communicating all together, because that's going to make a lot more progress than probably any other option.
So I'm gathering, and I'm not trying to cut off the questions if there are any other questions, but I'm gathering that council isn't ready to make a decision tonight. And I think that's really what we just want to keep in front of you, that I think sooner or later, unless something just falls in our lap, you're going to have to at some point in time. But I assume you're not ready to tonight.
Can you also, that other section that we just split off last month, can you talk to us about the next steps that's progressing on that?
Yes, that is, currently we have to go through a scoping process that we have to resubmit. We have to basically see where we're staying with the project, what remaining scoped items are in that section only. And then just make sure, because DOT has to understand that, and we have to resubmit a spreadsheet that's fine, with rates and all that kind of stuff, and then they have to approve that. So, that's before we can get started on that section. I mean, we all recognize that that's pretty much designed now. And so it shouldn't be much of an ask to just move that forward. I did provide a timeline to Josh and Jessica on how that would progress, assuming we get authorization to proceed in June, let's say. So if you're asking what the status is, it's in the scoping and the contract status right now. And you know, again, DOT's just broken this out as a separate project, so or the MPO at least has agreed, so it has to be blessed on that section as well. But that's in good shape.
Do we have a vision for what that section will look like?
Sure.
As far as, is it share roads or is it sidewalks?
That's a combination. Primarily, Terry Estates would be a share row situation, because it is an extremely low volume road, first off. Low traffic speeds, it's very tight and narrow. So that would be a share road option. Vance would have to be the pedestrian option until it got to, at the corner of Vance where it turned to go towards Montreat, that it becomes an off-road greenway at that point. There's enough right of way to get it off-road. So it actually becomes a shared use path at that point. And that connects from there to the Oaks.
So I know that in order for us to be designated Fontaflora, we have to have the separation.
Right.
Is there opportunity for us to do that?
So that separation can be several mechanisms. Physical barriers, curbing is considered a separation. So Vance currently has curb and sidewalk.
Mhm.
So it would qualify as a Fontaflora designation for walking. To my knowledge, Fontaflora doesn't require a shared use path such as bike bed. It's just, connectivity. And I think the other good thing to note is that Fontaflora seems to be flexible, at least from the meetings that I've seen, that if something comes to light later and you can change the route, they'll change their designation. So you're not stuck with that option indefinitely. So when a better option comes available, you can make that the designated network. But right now, it's a combination of shared roads, sidewalks, and then greenway.
And that sidewalk on Vance is fairly beat up. Would that need to get upgraded?
It does. Now, I will say this, only from the section where Terry Estates intersects. From the remainder of the section that goes up towards, I guess all the way to 9, really. That is not part of the project, and that from meetings with DOT's Bike Ped Division, that doesn't have to be improved. It's only where you're designating this new route. So the scope of the project was not including that Vance, is my point. So compliance, meaning if it's not part of this project, which it wouldn't be at that point, it only creates a pedestrian option to get to route into this project, then those improvements aren't needed to be made. But at the northern section, on the other hand, if it becomes part of this project, then those improvements are needed on that northern section.
And sorry for all the questions.
It's fine.
Would we be able to maintain Fontaflora designation on that section of Vance if we're relying on that sidewalk as being the separation, if it's not ADA compliant?
We would have to confirm that, but my understanding is that it does need to have pedestrian connectivity. Now, whether that has to be compliant or not, I do need to confirm that.
Okay.
Yeah. So if those improvements have to be made, it may be a good thing to look at with this project, or just basically if you wanted to go to the CIP route and, include it with your funding stream to have that worked on to make it compliant. Maybe there's only a few locations. I haven't surveyed that section or not off the top of my head, but
Thank you.
yes.
So going back to the other section,
Okay.
the Scotland and all of that, would it be premature tonight? It's just starting to feel in my mind that what was Plan B is now turned into Plan A. And but we don't have a lot of information, things you outlined a minute ago about how wide is the street space and
Correct.
the school district and all of those things. Would it be premature tonight to authorize Fred to start compiling the information we need to know how to proceed with that section in that direction?
I think that's up to the council, if you want to start
It's an
spending money.
expenditure, so just you might need to understand what the cost of it is going to be.
Well, that's it's like a chicken or egg thing in my head, like if we don't know.
Right, but that's up to the council because, it's gonna have to come from you all, but you're gonna be spending money, but you don't know how much it is. I think you're gonna have to let Josh and Fred come up with at least an estimate of what you're gonna be spending to do what you're contemplating.
And let me,
That's exactly what I meant,
Yeah.
so we can keep this thing moving,
Right,
just get some
that's why,
information.
that's why we're here, so.
so let me say this, on the section you're mentioning, I would feel better once we got this through the MPO and on the tip, because if we
Right.
spend money now on that section, that is not a program section, and that will become out of our pockets.
Okay,
So I would want to wait on that, at least until we get that programmed on the
That's a
tip.
good point.
well, I trust your guidance about all of that, and I just wanted to say, let's keep getting the information, and we're doing what we need to do to keep it moving forward, so every month we're not having the same conversation.
The same report. I understand.
Hopefully next month we'll have something new to report.
Yeah.
Keep my fingers
I'm
crossed.
sure, I appreciate your efforts.
This project is complicated. It takes tremendous patience,
Yeah.
and I commend you for just hanging in there. I think you're making the right decisions, just in order, but it just takes so much time
Right.
and patience, really. We're all in this kind of together, being
Yeah.
patient. So
All right, any other questions? All right, Fred, thank you very much. We
Yeah,
appreciate
thank
you coming
Thanks, Fred.
and for all the information.
absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. On to new business A, Josh, conditional financial contribution from Black Mountain Greenways Trails Committee.
Sure. So we have Mrs. Julia Weatherford with us tonight from the Black Mountain Greenways Trails Committee to maybe answer some questions for the council if they have any. But what this is, they have received donations throughout the years through the Parks and Greenway Foundation, and they are wanting to give the town, I want to say around $25,000 to do a small project on the Greenway Trail that is over at the community garden. I guess right at the bottom of the trail before it goes under the underpass, it holds a lot of water, and it has for, I guess, probably forever, for a long time. So that's what this is for. And Julia, I'll let you add anything to it if you need to.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I am Julie Weatherford, and I am on the Greenways Commission, but I'm here tonight as a member of the Greenways, the Black Mountain Greenways and Trails Committee, which is a newly formed organization. We were advised by the manager and the attorney that we should, some of the efforts that the commission had been doing in the past financially, putting on the Greenway Challenge and raising money and having volunteers and things like that, were outside of the scope of what the commission should be doing. And so we have formed this committee, which is a 501c3 under the foundation, which is already in existence, the Black Mountain Parks and Greenways Foundation, it's called. So that's just the background of where that money came from. It was quite a few years of the Greenway Challenge and accepting donations from people, merchants in town and other people. And we have some money to work with and saw this need. Actually, Savannah, is the budget, did that get up?
It's in your packet.
Okay. So the number that you mentioned, Josh, was a little different. So yeah, the committee had actually approved to spend up to the budget. Actually, the estimate says 17,000. The committee approved to spend 18,000 because we know it's not. That it could shift some. So that has been committed for this project. That section is low-lying right along the interstate, and every time it rains, it gets about 4 or 5 inches. The whole section in there is a swamp, so this is like kind of almost a little bit of an overkill with the pipes to let the water drain back and forth. But then we have to go up pretty high, so it's going to make a little bit of a swale there in the Greenway. And we brought it at this time because there's going to be some improvements done to the underpass, and it'll have to be repaved. And so it seemed like while the paving was going on, this would be a good time to try to do that. That's why we wanted to just go ahead and fund it if the town is amenable.
Great, thank you very much. Julia, we appreciate that. Does anybody have any questions for Julia? We appreciate you doing it, we appreciate your service and the contribution and helping improve the Greenway. That'll be nice once we get the tunnel improved and tying into the improved area that you
Yeah.
all are making possible. That'll be great. Any questions for Julia?
No.
If not, I think we would need a motion to approve accepting funds from the Greenway Trails Committee as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Archie. Mr. Stein, would you start the?
Sure. Ryan Stone, aye. Archie Patillo, aye.
Jim Raines, aye.
Doug Hay, aye.
Pam King, aye.
Thank you, Julia, we
Okay.
appreciate you.
Thanks.
All right, Josh B., Town Council and Boards and Commission Appointment Policy.
So, as I mentioned last week at our agenda meeting, this is something that's been thrown around for a few months now, and this is kind of our first crack at it. We did, we had a public comment, as I read a few minutes ago, and we did, Council Member King, bad habits. She did provide Savannah and I with a couple of comments, and I just said we'd wait till this meeting to mention these. And Pam, if you want to mention those, that's fine, you can, or I can, but
Josh, if I could, how about just walking through quickly the process? Because it's the same, we're really talking the same process for whatever we're doing, correct?
that's right.
Whoever we're appointing.
So the initial, once someone fills out an application, of course, the initial review comes to the town clerk. She will check ordinance requirements for qualifications and the current composition of the applicable committee's membership for diversity of backgrounds and residence locations. 2, there will be scheduling. The clerk will include the application along with a summary of that analysis to the applicable committees.
Could I stop you just a second?
Yes.
So the town clerk's going to check, of course, to make sure that the ordinances are being followed and so forth. But outside of that, what other restriction can there be if somebody wants to submit their application?
There wouldn't be any, as long as, someone did meet the qualifications and any other restrictions that we have in place through policy, it would
Right.
go then to
Right.
the next step.
Right, if it meets the ordinance, if it's, there's no screening process.
No, no.
Well, actually, that phrase made it sound as if there were. I think that might be a little problematic. I don't know, that might be the town attorney's purview to say that.
Well, I can see the reasons there, because different boards have different qualifications. Historic Preservation Commission being a good example. And there's some things you look to there that you wouldn't for the planning board or board of adjustment. You might play with the wording a little, but it does help identify that different boards may have different requirements.
Let's see, scheduling. So the clerk will include the application along with a summary of that analysis to the applicable committee for consideration at its next regular scheduled meeting. The clerk will also notify the applicant of that meeting date and time, and that he or she needs to be present for that meeting. Committee review, new applicants. The committee shall conduct any new applicant review at the end of its business for that meeting. They can then review the application and engage the applicant for any clarification of the application, discuss their qualifications or interest in the committee, and any feedback about the meeting. Also, there's reappointments no later than the regularly scheduled June meeting each year. Each committee shall review the status of any members whose terms expire July 31st of that year. For any such members wishing to be reappointed, the committee shall confirm eligibility with those members and make a recommendation to the town council. Recommendation, the committee will discuss and send any recommendations about appointments to the town council for its next regularly scheduled meeting. It can also continue the discussion if further information or time are needed to make a decision. Final review, the clerk will include the application, summary, and committee's recommendation to the town council for consideration at its next available regularly scheduled meeting. Let's see, if, once the individual is appointed, there'll be an orientation process. And we talk about requirements, that they can be removed for any reason, by the town council. And then we roll into general statutes where we talk specifically about filling vacancies on the town council.
All right, can I stop you a second?
Yes.
I'm a little, maybe I'm just tired or something, but the applicable committee
So that would be either planning board, zoning board of adjustment.
for the committee review.
Yes, it would be that whole, whatever that board is. Yes. We could change that to a different name. It might make it a little easier to.
That's okay. No,
Or something.
well, yeah, maybe that's okay. We understand. That's good.
And as I mentioned, we roll into the general statutes 160A, 63, where we talk about vacancies. Actually, Savannah, I think this 90 days, I have an old one. That's supposed to be 120, right?
Well, the 90 is still the statute.
Still
We
the
are
statute.
proposed for a new charter,
That's it.
135, and that change won't be made till next year, doesn't it? Why?
I guess we'll have to leave 90 for now, won't we?
So could I stop just a second? So does that mean that the way this is written now, I realize that's why we're discussing, it might change. Does that mean, let's say it's the planning board. So it's a place for the planning board, that those applications are gonna go to the planning board.
Mhm.
Well, so what are they gonna do with them? Could they say they don't want that person, they don't wanna advance it to the town council?
They will all be advanced to the town council, but essentially what that will do is allow the planning board to make a recommendation to council.
So they're gonna,
Of their pick.
right,
But the
right.
council will still receive every application.
It's not a screening, it'll move through.
Correct.
And then once the council gets them, y'all could take the planning board's recommendation, or it's kind of like anything else, or
Right,
do what you want to do.
It's formalizing what would happen if the planning board members had a strong opinion about someone who was applying. I think council members would probably hear from certain members of the planning board. I'm using that as an example, of course, but so, that's good, go ahead.
Let's see, where was I? So we were on the filling vacancies of the town council. And all this information comes straight from the statute, doesn't it?
Right. So that's okay, I'm good there. I think that's, frankly, unless other members of council
Well, I
want
think
to
there's
go
a
into
couple
the
other-
detail more or ask questions, I'm good. That kind of got me where I wanted to go.
And then we go through the application process that talks about, you must be 21 years old. And then we talk about the nomination and ballot method. And I think that was mentioned in one of the public comments about that being used for town council and why we wouldn't use that for other boards and committees. And then-
So let me ask this. So, again, town attorney, but how does that ballot system work with open meeting? I mean, it has to be made public sooner or later.
Certainly, and again, if you have ballots, I think the purpose was, we got into this rhythm of the first person. If your last name starts with A instead of L, odds are pretty good you got the job. Is the ballot method was proposed so that in writing, everybody without a nomination would just have all these bodies, and you get your ballots. Those will be signed ballots. The world will know who voted for whom, but I think that was try to level the playing field for all the people who wanted the job. And then if you don't have a majority, you eliminate the lowest and keep your highest vote getters, and you vote again. But it will be an open meeting, and as my understanding, the only reason to shift to that was to give everybody who had applied an even shot, and not the first guy in the alphabet getting the nomination and the win.
Right. So if you envision that, you do these ballots, which we may be doing next month. And town clerk or something, bring them to to ever who's moderating the meeting, be it, me or the vice mayor. And then we would read each ballot out and say, I would say, Councilmember Stone, and read out his, so we'd make it public, all public for the record, there. And then I suppose the ballots could get to be part somehow of the public record.
Yes.
I would think they have to be maintained just like that, like if.
Yes,
if,
they do, I believe they are required to be read aloud in the meeting and made part of the minutes as
Right.
well.
Well, I would think even the ballot itself,
Yes.
I mean, how we could collude.
Well, they're gonna be scanned, but, and you guys have done this before, that for a lot of these seats, you're gonna have one name on one slot. And my only recommendation is perhaps that when you've got that situation, that your rules provide that you don't have to do the written ballot.
That's a good point.
And the board can either nominate that person and you get a majority vote and they got the job, or they don't get a majority vote and that position's held up for another month of advertising.
Good point. Good point.
Just so that Savannah doesn't have to bring you a dozen ballots when there's only one name on it.
That sounds good. Anybody questions, comments?
I did, I had just a couple. So after the recommendations come from the committee to the council, I think we need a little more clarification in there about what's the process. It doesn't really say what the process is at that point for us to vote. And I think we just need to add some language in there about what we just discussed.
In addition to what we just discussed?
It's, what we just discussed isn't in there. So we need to
Right. But
put that in.
anything in addition to what we just discussed?
No, that's fine, but we just need to be real clear, I think, about what our process is gonna be when it comes here.
But, but what we discussed is good for you. You
Yeah,
don't have anything
yeah.
to add to it.
I think that the confusion is that the nomination and ballot section is underneath the filling vacancies on the town council.
We can just add it every
So
time.
we'll just add it under the next section as well. That's fine.
Right, great.
Right. And the only other tweak I had was under the recruitment and application process section, right at the very beginning there. It says current committee members, town council, and town staff are all encouraged to actively recruit applicants. And I just would like to suggest that we state that the current committee members, town council, and town staff are expected to make every effort, not just encouraged. It's a small change, but I think it matters. And the other part of that, I was really pleased to see that they, in drafting this, encouraged or included the word diversity there in terms of the kind of people we're looking for. But I'd love to even punch it up a little more and make it, give it a little more emphasis and suggest that a special emphasis on the recruitment of applicants who reflect the broad range of citizens in our community.
Great.
So, I mean,
Got
it's
that,
just,
Savannah?
I
Yeah.
do.
just
Does
little.
Does anybody have any objections to Pam's? Yep, we're good.
Thanks.
Okay, any other comments?
I just have one clarification or question around the filling vacancies on the town council section. It appears, my understanding is that this is now requiring an application process, which would, I believe, kind of require a time period between the announcement of a vacancy and the appointment. Is that correct? Allowing for people to put their name in and apply?
Yes. So I'm trying to find the exact, but. And we could, if we wanted to, we could put an exact timeline on that. I don't think it's in there right now, but that was the intention behind it. That there would be a time for people to apply and then the applications would come to council. Yeah.
So do you want to suggest a timeline or
Well,
let
I mean,
council, this is, if it rolls forward, it would be up to each council to, depending on how they felt how they chose to set the time frame.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's probably sufficient. You know, I think that every situation will be different, and in some places, times you might have a few months where it wouldn't be
Right.
that big of a deal, and other times you might be a little more rushed. But I appreciate that we now have, you know, the intention to allow opportunity for citizens to apply and make sure that it's known that they are interested in the appointment.
All right. Anybody else? So if not, I think we could entertain a motion to approve the policy as presented with the changes that have been suggested. And let's go through them to make sure that we can remember. I think Attorney Sneed's suggestion, which I think is a good one, is about if you have the one
applicant.
applicant, and just Savannah, just to make sure we get those in the motion. And, but that was it, frankly, I think. No, I mean, for my comments.
Yeah.
I think that was it. And then Pam, yours was,
Changing the language in the recruitment and application process paragraph there.
mhm.
And I have your email.
You've got that, yeah,
yes.
and then, making sure we're clear in the, how the council votes on on candidates. Correct?
Yeah, for a nomination ballot to be also applied for
Yeah,
the board, the citizen board and commission.
Right.
And then we've got change to encourage to expected.
yes.
Okay, is there anything else? Is that covered? We've got the changes covered?
And did you want the diversity statement also changed?
Yes, I did. I
Okay,
think she's got it.
I think you got it all, Savannah?
I do.
All right, that sounds good. So we'll entertain a motion that the Town Council and Boards and Commissions appointment policy be adopted as presented with the changes that we have just outlined.
So moved.
All right, thank you. Mr. Stone?
Ryan Stone, aye. Archie Patillo, aye. Tim Raines, aye.
Doug Hay, aye.
Pam King, aye.
Right, thank you. And now we're at the Carver Center Playground.
I'm gonna bring in Erin Van Note, who's the executive director of the Black Mountain Montessori. She is gonna do a much better job than I would explaining this to you.
Hey, Aaron, good to have you with us.
Really excited about it.
I am really excited about this. It's a good thing that I have that level of excitement since we're working with children. First of all, thank you all for having me. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Erin Van Note. I work with Black Mountain Montessori. Been the director there for coming on 4 years, but I've been involved with the school as a parent and on their board of directors for 13 years. So I'm very invested in the opportunities that we provide for the Black Mountain community. And this is just a natural next step. We moved in to the building about 5 years ago, and at that time we moved our existing playground equipment from our old building on Center Avenue. And at that time it was already over a decade old, and so we had to do a lot of improvements just to make it safe. And it's been a great playground, but it's definitely time to up our game and to really engage the children and also provide an additional opportunity to the community at large for age-appropriate and safe play and exploration. So thank you for considering my proposal. I know that it went out in advance for you to look at, but I just want to reiterate the goals. One of the biggest issues is there is a good deal of erosion on the bank in the playground that is causing water runoff that we do not have control of, that's continuing to flood the playground. So that's kind of the first thing that needs to be addressed. And the rest of them are really to create creative play by updating and repurposing the equipment. We want to add areas that foster positive growth and development for the 3 to 6 year old child, and to provide a welcoming and fun play environment for Black Mountain community. It is open to the community after hours and on the weekends. And then we're hoping to be able to partner with the town of Black Mountain to help offset the expense for the output of this project through partnership. We are writing grants. I have one grant that I've already written to the community recreation for Buncombe County. I'm reaching out to other Buncombe County organizations that are currently funding playground development. I'm looking for donations from other area businesses in terms of equipment and materials. And then, of course, community volunteers as well as our parents. Our parents are very active volunteers doing a lot of work. So, yeah, we're still waiting to hear on that community grant, but we're very hopeful that they will consider us a worthy project, considering the multi-use space that the Carver Center land is for the town.
So you're seeking the council's approval tonight to proceed, but you really need to raise the funds before you can commence. And and hopefully you can raise the funds, and then the new playground equipment, et cetera, becomes like a leasehold improvement. I mean, if you all have to leave, which I hope you don't, but if you all can't be there, then it just stays. It's the
That
town's
is
property.
correct. Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure that the public understood that.
Yes, we don't have any intention of going anywhere.
Right.
We love that space. We put a lot of heart and love into it as well. So, yes, that's correct.
Right.
We are securing funding and making plans, and we do need permission from the town in order to do that, considering you are the landowners. And I haven't been asked by the organization yet, but I'm sure there will be the need to have signed permission to move forward with the project.
Right, because it's on town property. I think this, I'll defer to the town manager and town attorney, but if the town passes this motion to approve the request to renovate the playground, then that indicates that that's the council's has authorized it. So this motion in itself should be, if it's passed by council, should be sufficient, don't you think?
And if it is insufficient, then the town clerk can certify that the board in fact did that.
Yep.
Perfect.
And for the public and council to understand that we still need to be successful in helping fundraise if we can. So I think certainly the project comes, I think, with council's recommendation that we think it's a great project if this motion passes. So any questions, council?
I applaud your use of the diversity of the tree space and the hill thing there. I think it's gonna be great.
Yeah, I've got more dreaming story pictures, but we've got a really good team, people who are helping us put this plan together. And I've contacted with a playground contractor who's actually the main contractor for Navitat. I remember how to say it. But so he has a lot of experience in creating playful environments in the woods, which is exactly what we want to do. So.
Any other questions? Not, would entertain a motion to approve or to deny the request to renovate the playground at the Carver Center by the Montessori School.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make that motion to approve request to renovate the playground.
Thank you, Councilmember Patillo. And so, Mr. Stone.
Ryan Stone, aye.
Archie Patillo, aye. Tim Raines, aye.
Doug Hay, aye.
Pam King, aye.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Aaron, for coming.
Thanks for
this
having
evening.
me.
The personnel policy,
All
Mr.
right.
Harold.
This is 8D. This is our personnel policy. This is an update to some language. So we are part of the North Carolina Blue Cross Blue Shield State Health Plan. And of course, since we're required to adhere to any of those changes that they make to the state health plan. And in this case, they have made a change to anyone hired after January 1st of 2021 will not be eligible for the continuation of their health insurance benefits after providing that the retiree has 15 years of service with the town immediately preceding retirement. So currently, if you are an employee of the town and you are at retirement age or you've spent 15 years with the town, you can get those health insurance benefits until Medicare kicks in. Anybody hired after January 1st, 2021 will not be eligible to get those benefits any longer. Relatively straightforward. It's just, we just added just a sentence to our personnel policy stating that.
Okay, any questions for Josh on that? And if not, I would entertain a motion to approve the amendment of the personnel policy as presented.
So moved.
Thank you. Any questions? If not, Mr. Stone.
Ryan Stone, aye. Archie Patillo, aye. Tim Raines, aye.
Doug Hay, aye.
Pam King, aye.
Thank you. And Josh, I believe that we are on then to the, goodness, got my papers all crossed up here. To the text amendments, right?
No, fire department career ladder.
Yep, thanks.
So this is what you have in, you don't have anything in front of you, but this, you have the sheet in front of you, and what this does, this would be creating more of a step system in the fire department, if you will, where currently folks that are hired in the fire department, it takes a long time, if ever, to move up because there's just not a lot of room in the middle. So what we're doing here is gonna be adding some new job descriptions for specifically driver operator will be the position. And what it would end up doing for the town, of course, will make that more of a ladder at the fire department. As far as cost goes, we don't have these folks picked out yet. We may be able to get this done before the end of this budget year. Not sure. If we don't, then that's okay, but we're gonna try to. But in next year's budget, this would be a $17,000 roughly increase to the fire department salary lines across the board.
All right, any questions for Josh? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the career ladder as presented.
So moved.
And Josh, this becomes part of personnel policy, or what?
No, it actually, I don't know that it'll come, I don't know that we get that specific in the personnel policy. It becomes part of the salary and classification plan.
Okay. All right, so the motion is to approve the career ladder, which is part of the the what? The
It's called the
salary?
salary and classification plan. I can't even talk.
Thank you, that's all. All right, thank you, Josh, I appreciate that. Entertain a motion?
So moved, Mr.
Thank
Mayor.
you, thank you. Mr. Stone.
Ryan Stone, aye. Archie Patillo, aye. Tim Raines, aye.
Doug Hay, aye.
Pam King, aye.
Thank you. If we are on to our public hearings.
And I'll just preface this with, we do not have Jessica tonight. She had an emergency she had to go take care of. Luckily, Jennifer was able to come back and help us through this, so I didn't have to put my planning hat on.
Thank you, Jennifer.
You're welcome.
So go right ahead and give us the facts. Let me first entertain a motion that we go into the public hearing, open the public hearing.
So moved.
Mr. Stone.
Ryan Stone, aye. Archie Patillo, aye. Tim Raines, aye.
Doug Hay, aye.
Pam King, aye.
Great, thank you. Go right ahead.
All right. So the first public hearing you have tonight is for the voluntary annexation of properties at 201 and 207 Old Toll Road. These properties have been purchased by Brownie and Elizabeth Newman. They are located just outside of the city limits off of Old Toll Road. And they do currently have, one property has one house and the other property has an old commercial garage that's vacant. They would like to place additional structures on the property and will need additional water from the town. So per our policy, they have to request voluntary annexation. So the planning board did hear this request. All 7 members of the planning board felt that the property was comparable in size to adjacent properties in town near the Brooks Cove Road development. I will preface that by saying this is not related to that development at all. And all of the members felt that it would be a good fit to the town.
Thank you, Jennifer.
You're welcome.
Is there any public comment?
You got any on the screen? No. Nothing. I don't have any, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Mr. Stone.
Ryan Stone, aye. Archie Patillo, aye. Tim Raines, aye.
Doug Hay, aye.
Pam King, aye.
Thank you. On council? What's your pleasure?
I have one quick question. This parcel will be accessed through Old Toll Road and not Hooks Cove Road, or?
Correct. Both parcels would be accessed off of Old Toll Road. There is what appears to be a right-of-way that would or could connect to Brooks Cove Road. In speaking with Mr. Newman at the planning board meeting, he did assure planning board members he had no interest in using that right-of-way to connect to Brooks Cove Road in any shape, way, or form.
I would be happy to make a motion to approve this ordinance as presented.
Very good. Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Stone.
Ryan Stone, aye.
Archie Patillo, aye. Tim Raines, aye.
Okay, aye.
Pam King, aye.
Great, thank you. Now we're on to the public hearing for the rezoning of 201 and 207 Old Toll Road, and I'd entertain a motion that we open the public hearing.
So moved.
Go right ahead.
Ryan Stone, aye.
Archie Patillo, aye. Tim Raines, aye.
Okay, aye.
Pam King, aye.
Thank you. Go right ahead, Jennifer.
Okay, so this is the follow-up. Since you did approve to annex the property, they now have to be giving a zoning classification. In their petition to annex, they did ask for the UR8 zoning classification. That is our urban residential district at 8 units an acre. Everything that is inside city limits that is surrounding that property is already zoned UR8, and the Brooks Cove Road development was also rezoned to UR8 after their annexation. The planning board did hear this request. They did vote 7-0 to recommend the UR8 zoning district. They felt that it was reasonably sized compared to adjacent parcels. It would not have a negative impact to the existing neighbors. It is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and the uses that are in the proposed district are comparable to the uses of the surrounding parcels.
Great. Thank you,
You're
Jennifer.
welcome.
Any public comment? Josh, Savannah? Very good. Then I'd entertain a motion that we close the public hearing.
So moved.
Go right ahead.
Ryan Stone, aye.
Archie Patillo, aye. Tim Raines, aye.
Okay, aye.
Pam King, aye.
Great, thank you. All right, council. Before you is the zoning of 20,
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to
201 and 7. Go ahead,
make a
sir, go ahead.
motion to adopt the zoning ordinance Z-0-21-01, to rezone 201 and 207 Old Toll Road from R1 to UR8.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Patillo. Any comments or questions? If not, Mr. Stone.
Ryan Stone, aye.
Archie Patillo, aye. Tim Raines, aye.
Okay, aye.
Pam King, aye.
Very good, thank you. So now we are on to public hearing to close a portion of unopened platted portion of right-of-way parallel and between West College Street and Goldmont Street. And entertain a motion that we open the public hearing.
So moved.
Very good, go right ahead. Mr.
Ryan Stone, aye.
Archie Patillo, aye. Tim Raines, aye.
Okay, aye.
Pam King, aye.
Great, thank you. Jennifer?
All right, so I believe you all actually heard a request for the closure of a small portion of this right-of-way between the properties of 74 Goldmont Street and 218 West College Street that was not recommended by the planning board and I believe was also not approved by you all. So the planning board initiated their own petition to close the entire section of right-of-way from Goldmont Street on the north end to the intersection of Central Avenue / Ash Street. We identified on any of our plans for a greenway or a road. It is not part of a stormwater system, nor is it in any kind of drainage area. The planning board did recommend the closure with a vote of 5-1. After this meeting, I think a petition was received from some neighbors, and we did staff sent out a letter clarifying that if the right-of-way is closed, the town will not open it back up for any purpose. And that was really about it in that letter, just kind of clarifying the process. So, yeah,
Okay, great, thank you.
you're welcome.
Any public
I
comments?
do have public comments. I have 3 here. This is from Gretchen Glass. I am writing today to support the closure of the utility right-of-way between Goldmont Street and West College Street. Acquiring the alley behind our property will allow us to expand our yard as we are currently building an addition on our house. The possibility of having an area to add a shed will certainly help us with much-needed storage space because we do not have a garage. This alley is currently left without proper maintenance and is growing between our fence posts, looking unsightly. Proper maintenance will also deter dangerous pests such as snakes and ticks, which will help keep our family safe. Use of this unassigned property has also caused neighborhood conflicts in the past, allowing property owners adjacent to the utility right-of-way to obtain each corresponding portion of the alley will permanently end such discrepancies. I support the town of Black Mountain's option provided to those opposing the closure of the utility right-of-way to individually contact the tax office to decline the movement of their own property lines. This option offers a solution to each property owner without affecting the preferences of their neighbors. There appears to be many benefits to homeowners who wish to gain the alley space adjacent to their properties. Thank you for presenting this option to us, and I very much look forward to obtaining, maintaining, and putting this space to proper use. This is Michael Glass, 74 Goldmont Street. I am in favor of the planning board's recommendation of the partial closure of the right-of-way between Goldmont Street and West College Street. The closure of the alley will take the burden off adjacent neighbors to seek judgments on to where one's property starts and where it ends. Me and my family have had very negative experiences in dealing with the alley in the past, and the closure will settle any ongoing legal disputes once and for all. Thank you. This is James A. Full and Courtney C. Halcomb, 6 Gold Leaf Walkway. We wish to send a letter of support for the Goldmont Street, West College Street, partial Central Avenue, unopened, abandoned right-of-way closure. My wife and I, plus several butters, have supported closure multiple times over the last couple of years. In a new letter to council, we will state the positive reasons for which this was initiated. We have plans to maintain and improve the native vegetation on the abandoned overgrown section, contain, absorb rainfall, and willingly accept adding the additional square footage to the tax rolls to the benefit of Black Mountain and Buncombe County. Respectfully. That's it.
Great, thank you, Josh. Entertain a motion that we close the public hearing.
So moved.
Brian?
Brian Stone, aye.
Archie Patillo, aye.
Tim Raines, aye.
Doug Hay, aye.
Pam King, aye.
Thank you. Council?
I just have one question. Is it too late for a question?
No.
Mr. Sneed, do they have the option of whether that one letter mentioned that some of the neighbors might accept the property and some might not? Do they?
No, if you close that alley, every adjoining property owner's property line will now move to the center of that alley. If they don't want it, they can give it to the neighbor with a deed.
Gotcha.
Great, any other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve resolution R-21-06 for the right-of-way closure.
So moved.
Thank you. Mr. Stone?
Brian Stone, aye.
Archie Patillo, aye.
Tim Raines, aye.
Doug Hay, aye.
Pam King, aye.
Thank you. And then lastly, I believe, as far as our public hearings, a public hearing for text amendments to open space requirements in major subdivisions. And I'd entertain a motion that we open the public hearing.
So moved.
Thank you. Mr. Stone?
Brian Stone, aye.
Archie Patillo, aye.
Tim Raines, aye.
Doug Hay, aye.
Pam King, aye.
Great, thank you. Jennifer?
All right, so the text amendment before you tonight addresses open space area that is required in all major subdivisions. Currently, the requirement is 5%. We are looking to amend that to increase that to 15%. This amendment will address feedback that we have gotten from citizens through our comprehensive plan update process, also just through general comments with all of the development going in town, and just about providing more green space and open space. The planning board heard this amendment at their March meeting. They did recommend it 7-0. They determined that the amendment is consistent with the comprehensive plan because it calls for more open space and green space and is reasonable and in the public interest because it incorporates concerns from citizens to have more green space in development.
Great, thank you, Jennifer.
Mhm.
Is there any public comment?
No, sir.
Being none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Thank you. Mr. Stone.
Ryan Stone, aye.
Archie Patillo, aye.
Tim Raines, aye.
Okay,
Pam King, aye.
Thank you. So, how does this tie in and support the ordinance that we passed within the past 12 months, I think, that a certain size residential building or building of any kind has to have these mitigating stormwater. So how does this tie into that? Is that the same 15? I mean, if you whatever your requirement is under that ordinance, which as I recall, was passed because it's pretty much came down from other powers that's what we needed to be doing. Maybe we had no choice, actually. And so how does it tie in?
Well, I don't want to speak for Jennifer or Jess, but I would suspect that, depending on what type of stormwater control measure you're using, if it's something, that's rain gardens and things of that nature, I would think they would count towards this.
Do we know that for sure? Because that's the only concern I have is that we cross those over and we're not coordinating the two.
They would. So as Josh said, depending on what type of stormwater management system it is, it could count towards that open space requirement.
Well, I just have concerns about passing the ordinance. I mean, I might prefer to table it and pick it up at our next opportunity or however we do it until we make sure we understand how that works. I mean, that's sort of my concern. I don't know how council feels, because they can move forward if they wanted to, but that, somebody buys a piece of property and we've already mandated the stormwater requirements, which which are a positive thing. I'm not trying to put that down. But we don't want it to maybe be. I think we need to make sure we understand what it is.
Right.
If how they work.
Right.
What does everybody else think? Council.
Do you feel like there's confusion or?
I think we can get you a list of stormwater control systems that could count towards open space and those that wouldn't count towards open space. And I think that might help clear up some of that confusion because the things like the underground drain systems, obviously those would not count towards open space. But if you have the rain gardens or anything like that, that could count towards that open space. But I think we can come up with a list for you all just to help clear that up. I don't see any issue with that.
Great. Well, it depends on how council feels.
Sure.
That's just my thinking.
Sure.
I think it would be smart to err on the side of caution and make sure we're all clear.
Mr. Steve, what's the best way to go about that as far as just picking it up? Since this is a public hearing.
You've had your public hearing with a single and you're done. You can continue it till your next meeting to call for the vote once you've got that bit of information.
To the next regularly stated meeting?
Next
Okay.
regular scheduled
Okay.
meeting, so you don't have to renotice it.
Then I would entertain a motion by a council member that we continue this public hearing at our June regular meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Go right ahead.
Ryan Stone, aye. Archie Patillo, aye.
Tim Raines, aye.
okay, aye.
Pam King, aye.
Thank you, council. And I think with that, Mr. Sneed, do you have anything for us this evening?
A little bit, well, a lot of bit. As I pointed out at your agenda meeting, there is a proposal, as we now know, won't go to the county commissioners until this week, for a modernization and pretty wide-reaching change of the county library system. A piece of that is that this proposal includes basically a closure of the Black Mountain Library and the Swannville Library and the construction of a larger facility somewhere between the two towns. Up on the counter, and I emailed you that stuff today. I didn't print it all out because I didn't bring a wheelbarrow to bring it all in because there's a 151-page report in there. But there is a slideshow that's been created, a PowerPoint for the presentation to the commissioners, and if it's helpful, there's a stack of a copy of those on the ledge beside Savannah. But that's the piece of it that probably affects us, is their interest in at least the new director's proposal that Buck Mountain Library be closed, Swan Mill Library be closed, and there's some other closures and consolidations. The idea to build a bigger, newer, more modern facility between the two. My personal concern, of course, is the library is always a community center. And that's why it caught my attention pretty quickly. I got my other hat, I'm on your library board. And that strikes me as losing a big piece of community when you lose your local library. And so that's why I brought it to the board. However, Mr. Newman corresponded with the mayor and said, we haven't even heard that formally yet. We know it's out there and know it's coming, but the presentation hasn't been made to the county. As you can see and can guess, this is going to be an expensive project for the county to undertake. And the new director may scare them completely out of their pocketbooks and nothing will happen. But it's out there, and and I thought the community ought to know that there is a proposal that might affect their community library. Second,
Councilmember King, you're close to it, you care to make a comment?
I share Mr. Sneed's concern. It's not even come to the county commission yet, so it's in the very early stages of this whole, they hired a consultant, and we'll see what happens, but I think it's good that the community knows, and I appreciate you bringing it to the attention here.
I would just want to be clear from certainly my perspective and what I can understand of it. I'm certainly not supportive of the plans at all. I mean, I'm not.
Yeah.
So I would hope council would feel the same way when it comes clear and there's a time for us to pass a resolution. Unless we know something extraordinarily different than what we've heard, it's hard for me to think of supporting a plan to close the Black Mountain Library at all. So that's to make that clear to anybody from the public that might, and I think council shares that. We've discussed it already. As a matter of fact, it would be of help for any members of the public that are listening that even we have a special call meeting to talk about our stormwater funding, setting up a utility fund for stormwater purposes Thursday morning, and we added this topic to the agenda, to the made public notice, I believe, and just so that we can take it up Thursday morning if need be. So we don't know that we will, but it's on the agenda, and we can if we choose to, if the council chooses to. So anyone else?
As you know, I'm meeting with the director, Jim Blanton, tomorrow.
Right.
And have a million questions of my own, and if you all have any questions you want to pass my way, I'll be glad to get some answers and share them with you on Thursday.
I think for my purposes, if it's agreeable to council, is let the director know that we are not supportive of that at all.
I am fully prepared to
Yeah,
convey
yeah.
that message.
Right. Great. Thank you, Pam, and thank you, Ron. Anything else?
I'm going to try to make this as short as I can, but I've noted a lack of information that we've had in the past about what's ongoing with proposed state laws that affect the town, may affect the town. And so I skimmed through all 400 of them the other night and tried to pick out a few as a consequence. And I'll try not to make this too long, but I'll tell you the ones that came to me of concern. As you probably know, one part of 160D that was passed as a separate session law is the one where it finds that if the town rules or a town body, a planning board, zoning board of adjustment, staff member, makes an interpretation against the developer or property owner sues and the court finds that it's clear that the decision was just bad wrong. I don't know a better way to put it, in somebody's opinion, it's obvious that the decision was wrong. Then the winning party will be awarded attorney's fees. There's a bill now, this is House Bill 821, for anybody who's curious about numbers, But this is the one that contradicts what we've known about our consistency statement and our comprehensive plan. As you know, whenever we adopt a zoning ordinance, we have to make a consistency statement, which is now built into your ordinance, finding it's consistent with our comprehensive plan. Until today, probably as recently as the last week, I have advised boards that you got to make that decision and find it. But once you've done that, that's not to be questioned by the courts. And House Bill 821 says that in the event we make a decision that's in contravention of our comprehensive plan and we get sued and we lose, attorney's fees will be awarded in that situation to the winning party. That doesn't sound significant till you have to write that check. There's been some slight modifications in the system development fees provisions. I wouldn't have even noticed that, but those of you who are watching, we used to have impact fees. Some court cases said we couldn't have impact fees anymore. And so the legislature authorized system development fees, which apply only to water and sewage systems. And now they have a bill, Senate Bill 437, to authorize impact fees.
It goes around, comes around, huh?
They just won't quit. Jessica's often complained that whenever she asks, can we do this to encourage affordable housing, she keeps getting told there's no authority for doing that. There's a couple of bills out there that would allow us to allow our in lieu requirements to encourage affordable housing. And that's not as big a help to the developer as the one that, if it's passed, will allow us to waive system development fees to encourage affordable housing. For anybody who's paid them, they know their system development fees are fairly expensive. And that was just a warm-up before we get to the exciting part that nobody wanted to hear. The legislature has House Bill 401. And the important part of that is they've come up with this new word. It's called middle housing. And what they say is whenever we have a zoning district for single-family residential development, it means on your lot you can have a single-family residence, that single-family residence zone now not only can have a single-family residence, but on that lot you can have a duplex, a triplex, or a quadruplex. The worrisome part about that is that means UR8, which can have 8 living units, or since we allow duplexes on any lot, 16 living units, or we can have a secondary residence, which would be 16 units. We can now have, if this passes, and UR8, you can have 4 units on a lot, 32 units, living units, spaces per acre. I think the pushback on that is a lot of towns just aren't going to zone lots that small anymore. But that's out there, that's worrisome for the planners. All the way down the line.
How is that different than Senator Edwards' bill that didn't make it out of Senate committee?
That's the one that failed.
That's that House bill though.
This one, when I looked today, shows it's still hanging out there.
It's in the House though.
It's not dead in the water yet. It's the House Bill 401.
But
Committee, I think.
was that the same, was that the
That's the
Senator
same
bill's?
way.
Yeah.
Similar, yeah.
And his didn't make it out of the Senate, so it probably wouldn't make it through the Senate anyway.
Well, it's not that the Senate and the House don't disagree on anything, but let's see, make sure I get the right one in order. The House has a bill introduced that would require that if a town wanted to pass an ordinance that would control trees on private property, they would have to get express authorization from the General Assembly. At the same time, the Senate has a bill out there that authorizes towns to enact ordinances affecting trees on private property.
We could have to go to General Assembly for a tree.
It'll take both houses to decide on one, yeah. So, but you're opposite sides of the court, it's fair chance either one of those.
They'd have to meet longer if they're gonna do that, won't they?
The only other thing to note that HR people want to know this is, as you know, your personnel records, typically, they're off grounds. That's not public record. Nobody gets to see them. And that's been enlarged over time. Somebody calls up now, you can give the name of the employee, the age of the employee, when they began, their title, their current position, their salary. And if there's a decrease when that happened. Now, they've added to that, you can disclose why they got that increase in salary or decrease in salary, how they were punished. If this passes.
All right. Anything else?
But those are the significant ones, and that House bill, if it stays afloat to allow that kind of density, that's gonna be problematic.
Yeah, that it will be, and it's hard to see that it's gonna be supported that much. This came up at a discussion at Land of Sky. It had a good many, municipalities. Well, actually, it's one of our more well-attended meetings. And you're just not gonna see, municipalities across the board. I do think it's a wake-up call. And this was part of the presentation with Senator Edwards who spoke, and that is that we do talk about affordable housing a lot, but it's hard to get there because it's just what we experience in Black Mountain. Once you're there, once you're in a place like we are, there's a great deal of pressure not to make anything more dense. And that's just what it is. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge.
There are some
Sure.
other parts of that same proposed ordinance that makes you do what we already do. Allow a duplex, allow a secondary residence on a single lot.
Mhm.
It's that triplex and quadruplex that would increase the density beyond
Mhm.
what this town wanted to do.
Mhm. Anything else?
That's it, those are the hot spots.
Thank you.
I'll
Appreciate you.
leave everybody else to read the other 395 on their own.
Appreciate you doing that. Josh, you have anything?
Yeah, I'll leave us with a little bit of good news. First one being Town Hall will be closed, May 31st for Memorial Day, coming up here in a few weeks. And then today around 4 o'clock, our guidance dropped for our American Rescue Plan money. So now I have 150 pages of guidance to look through. So I don't have a lot of answers for you tonight, but it'll be forthcoming.
Good.
From what I looked at briefly, pretty much what we thought, water, sewer, broadband, stormwater is actually in there, which was surprising.
Mhm.
Lost revenue,
Mhm.
and the other two were more COVID-related expenses, helping the community do certain things. So we'll get that digested and give you a good briefing on it.
Yeah, and you might reach out. There might be a call.
We've got a virtual workshop tomorrow. For you,
Good,
actually.
good. That's great.
Have we said publicly how much Black Mountain will receive?
It's, if I'm not mistaken, it's 2.39 million. I think was the number.
Yeah, it's a published list. It's out there for everybody.
We're not an entitlement city, so ours probably like Asheville will get the money directly from the federal government. Ours will go to the state and then come to us. So it may take a little bit longer. But
Thank you. Thank
Sure.
you.
And that's all I have.
Great. Thank you, Josh. Any member of council have anything?
I'd like to thank Savannah for the work on putting that process together for the appointments and all the work you did with that.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? If not, we have a special call meeting Thursday morning, so we'll see each other then. And if there's no objection and no one has any other comments, I'll call the meeting adjourned.